everybody, and welcome to our deep dive. We're
Yeah.
going to be taking a look at the life and legacy of Dick Button.
Yeah,
Incredible figure skater, obviously,
absolutely.
recently passed away. And we've got some articles here kind of looking back on his life. And
Hmm.
it's easy to just list off his accomplishments, right? Two-time Olympic gold medalist,
Right.
5 consecutive world championships.
Incredible.
But he was so much more than that. I think that's what we really want to get into today is
Yeah.
how he shaped figure skating as we know it today.
Well, and that's, I think, what's so fascinating about Button is that, he was such an incredible athlete, but his influence went way beyond that. He
Yeah.
really, you could almost say single-handedly transformed figure skating from, kind of this niche hobby into like a central event at the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, before we get to that transformation, we do have to just acknowledge how dominant he was on the ice.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the guy was winning national championships at 16.
It's unbelievable.
I was trying to figure out how to boil water without setting off the smoke detector, you know? It's unbelievable.
Astonishing at that age to have that level of success.
Yeah.
Speaks to his talent, but also he was a pioneer in terms of technique. He was the first to land a double axel and a triple loop in competition
Wow.
jumps that people had never seen before.
And these aren't slightly harder jumps like the double axel. He had to invent a whole new way of launching himself into the air.
Yeah, he would even say himself there was a cheat to it.
Yeah.
But it worked.
It worked, yeah.
And I think what's interesting is that he wasn't content with just being a champion.
Right.
He really had this vision, I think, and this drive to share his passion with the world.
Yeah.
And to make figure skating something bigger.
So how did he actually do that, though? What
Yeah.
were some of the specific moves he made to kind of bring figure skating to a wider audience?
Well, I think there are a few key moments that really stand out. One was his response to that tragic 1961 plane crash
Oh, right.
that killed the entire U.S. figure skating team.
Yeah, it was devastating.
Devastating. And Button, saw an opportunity amidst the heartbreak.
Okay.
He persuaded ABC to televise the World Championships the following year.
Wow, that's a pretty bold move considering the circumstances.
Yeah.
So he essentially used the power of television to bring figure skating into people's living rooms.
Exactly.
Did it work?
It absolutely worked. That decision was a turning point for the sport.
Yeah.
Suddenly, millions of people were exposed to figure skating's beauty and athleticism.
Right.
It wasn't just this niche interest anymore,
Right.
It was becoming mainstream entertainment.
I never really realized how much of an impact that one decision had.
Yeah.
Is he saw this future for figure skating that maybe other people didn't.
Right.
And then he made it happen.
He did. He was a visionary in that sense. But his impact, goes even further. He then becomes this legendary commentator for ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Yeah.
And really cements figure skating's place in the public consciousness.
Yeah. His commentary is legendary from what I've heard.
It is.
And it's not just describing the jumps and the spins. He's explaining the complexities of the sport
Yeah.
in a way that anyone can understand.
Right.
Even if you don't know the difference between a salchow and a toe loop.
Yeah. Brian Boitano, the 1988 Olympic champion, he said that Button, made the words Lutz and Salchow part of our everyday vocabulary.
Wow.
He had this ability to demystify the technical aspects of figure skating for a general audience.
Right.
Which is so crucial for building a wider fan base.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it wasn't just the technical stuff,
Right.
He had this way of making figure skating relatable.
Yeah.
He'd weave in stories, use humor.
Yeah.
Sometimes even throw in a little playful criticism.
Yeah.
It was like listening to your really smart, opinionated friend talk about a sport they loved.
That opinionated part is what I'm really curious about.
Yeah.
He was known for being pretty outspoken, right?
Oh, yeah.
Didn't always hold back, even when it came to, the top athletes.
He did not. He was famously candid.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes ruffled feathers.
I bet.
Johnny Weir, another, skating legend.
Right.
He once said that, Button told it like it was, even when his opinion wasn't a popular one.
Right.
But I think that honesty, that willingness to just call it as he saw it,
Yeah.
that's part of what made him so compelling.
For sure. Definitely adds another layer to the viewing experience, I think,
Absolutely.
When a commentator is willing to be critical, it shows they're really engaged,
Yeah.
that they understand the nuances, and it kind of pushes the athletes too, I think.
It does, and it helps the audience at home understand those nuances as well.
Right.
He wasn't just telling you what you were seeing.
Yeah.
He was teaching you how to watch figure skating,
Right.
how to appreciate the artistry and the athleticism,
Yeah.
on a deeper level.
So we've got this incredible athlete, this visionary promoter, this insightful commentator.
Yeah.
Did Button ever slow down?
Not really.
Okay.
And this is another area, I think, where his entrepreneurial spirit really comes out.
Okay.
In 1959, he founded Candid Productions,
Okay.
which was this company focused on creating opportunities for skaters beyond their competitive years.
Oh, okay. So what kind of opportunities are we talking about? Like coaching or?
It was bigger than coaching. I mean,
Right, yeah.
he organized professional events for television,
Oh, wow.
bringing in some of the biggest names in the sport.
Right.
Scott Hamilton Torville and Dean Christie Yamaguchi.
Wow. So like a whole.
There's a way for these skaters to continue performing,
Mhm.
earning a living,
Right.
sharing their love of skating with a broader audience, even after their competitive careers were over.
So it wasn't just like a one-man show, he
Yeah.
was actively building a platform for other skaters to thrive.
Exactly. And it speaks to his, I think, deep dedication to the sport and its future. It wasn't enough for him to succeed.
Right.
He wanted to see figure skating flourish as a whole.
It's amazing how he touched so many aspects of it,
He did.
from the actual like jumps to how it's presented to the world.
Yeah. And tragically, his death coincided with another, major event in figure skating.
Oh, right.
That plane crash involving members of the Skating Club of Boston.
Yes, that was heartbreaking.
2 young skaters lost their lives, along with their mothers and 2 former world champion coaches.
It was awful.
Button had a deep connection to that club.
Hmm.
He skated for them, and the trophy room there is named in his honor.
It's such a sad coincidence, especially given his own history
What?
with that 1961 crash.
Right.
It kind of feels like a reminder of how closely knit the figure skating community is.
It is.
You know how these events really reverberate through the whole sport?
Absolutely. And it makes you think about the fragility of life
Yeah.
and the importance of, celebrating those who have made a lasting impact, like Button.
We've talked a lot about his accomplishments,
We have.
but I'm curious, what do you think is his most enduring legacy? What will people remember Dick Button for, 100 years from now?
That's a great question. I think for me, it's the way he expanded the very definition of what a figure skater could be.
Yeah.
He wasn't just an athlete. He was an innovator, an entrepreneur, a commentator,
Right.
a champion for the sport at every level.
Yeah.
He broke down barriers, challenged conventions, and pushed figure skating into the spotlight.
Yeah.
And in doing so, he inspired countless others to see the beauty and potential of the sport, both on and off the ice.
Yeah, it really is inspiring.
Yeah.
He saw this future for figure skating that others maybe didn't, and then went out and made it happen.
He did.
And not just for himself, but for the whole sport.
And that's, I think, a key point.
Right.
It wasn't just driven by personal ambition.
Right.
He was deeply invested in the growth and success of figure skating as a whole.
It makes you wonder what other figures in sports history have had that kind of impact.
Yeah.
People who didn't just dominate their field, but fundamentally changed how it's perceived and experienced.
That's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
And I think one worth pondering.
Yeah.
Who are those individuals who've taken a sport beyond its boundaries?
Right.
Broadened its appeal
Right.
and left a lasting mark on its culture.
Yeah, think about, the athletes, the coaches,
Yeah.
the innovators, the advocates
Right.
who've shaped the games we love.
And it's not always the big famous names,
Yeah.
Even at a local level.
Yeah.
There are people who dedicate their time and energy to making a sport accessible, enjoyable for others.
Right.
Those coaches who go the extra mile,
For sure.
those volunteers who keep things running,
Yeah,
they all play a part in shaping the landscape of a sport.
absolutely. And their stories are just as important,
Yeah,
just as inspiring. And they remind us that, we all have the potential to make a difference,
We do.
to contribute to something bigger than ourselves,
Right.
whether it's, on a global stage or within our own communities.
Right.
That passion, that dedication can really have a ripple effect.
Yeah, for sure.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the life of Dick Button, I think the takeaway is this.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate the power of one person with a vision.
Right.
Button's story shows us that it's possible to not just achieve great things,
Right.
but to truly change the game
Yes.
and maybe inspire others to do the same.
Beautifully put.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive
Absolutely.
into the remarkable life of Dick Button.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning,
Yeah,
and maybe even find ways to leave your own mark on the world.
I love that.